New questions now for Tesla. The automaker's board reportedly set to meet this week over financing in the aftermath of CEO Elon Musk's tweet about taking that company private. And now there are conflicting reports about whether the Saudi Public Investment Fund will actually participate in the buyout. Joining me now, former Security and Exchange Commission's attorney Teresa Goody and Wall Street Journal tech and autos reporter Tim Higgins. Tim, first let's find out, where do we stand? I mean, does anyone have any sort of insight on this possible buyout?
Well, not at all. That's what's so unusual about this situation is it's almost been a week since Elon Musk put that tweet out around lunchtime on the East Coast saying funding secured. And that's a statement that could get him in trouble if that funding is not secured to take them private.
Teresa, of course, everyone's asking the legal ramifications on this. Now, on one hand, I do want to say, I do find it interesting, at least with Twitter, everyone gets the information at the same time. So, you know, back in the day, if this was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this is the kind of news that would find its way through Wall Street. You see increased options buying, the stock would tick up, you'd have to follow the volume, and then it would become public knowledge. So is there actually something good or positive about the fact that maybe a CEO is using Twitter like this?
I think it would be good if the CEO was using Twitter in addition to the customary venues usually used, like an 8K and a press release or the website. The concern here is using Twitter exclusively as the sole distribution channel, and that's where we would see some issues where this likely doesn't fall under the Regulation FD requirements for disseminating information in a way that is non-exclusionary and broad. I mean, a consideration is whether or not he had anybody blocked on his Twitter, and whether it's reasonable to expect investors to go through and troll all of the different social media mediums of
you know what,
all
but
the
I think,
officers.
with all due respect, Teresa, I think if I own Tesla stock, it'd be easier for me to follow Twitter than to wait for an 8K to be disseminated to Wall Street for then now, you know, for all the different analysts with their own biases, whether sell side or not, to then re-disseminate the information, come out with upgrades and downgrades by the time I get a chance to make a decision as an investor.
Well, we did see the chaos on the market, and there's still confusion as to whether or not there's truth in these statements, whether they are true. It's very difficult to make the kind of disclosure required for something of this magnitude. All of the different considerations, it's nearly impossible to put forward a disclosure that actually has all of the material information in it in those few of words.
Right.
And we saw it trickle in piecemeal, and so we had a tweet. We had a tweet a little bit later. We still don't know what it means. So this seems to me as though it's very inefficient and did not disseminate the information the way that the securities laws intends disclosure to operate.
Teresa, Aaron Elmer, good morning. Tapping into your SEC background a little bit, you spoke about the blocking. And we know the president and both Elon Musk like to block people. What are the legal ramifications there and access to information?
Well, the president is a different issue because he is not the CEO of a public company. So going to Elon Musk, if he did block people, well, that's non-exclusionary dissemination of information. So that in itself breaks what Regulation FD, fair disclosure, is intended to make sure that people comply with. And that's, if you block people, then it's not exclusive, obviously. Right.
Real quick, turning to the legal fallout, and we know it goes beyond Elon Musk. There's a new story in the Wall Street Journal that does raise questions about why NASDAQ waited so long to halt the stock. Tim, let me get your thoughts on that, and then I'll go back to Teresa.
It's another example here of how unusual this is, right? Normally a company might tip off the market that, hey, we got some material news coming, and they can decide if they need to stop trading when that happens. But it would seem in this case that the market was unaware this was going to occur, and you know, people learned about it from Twitter.
You know, one of the questions that I've got is a lot of people say that Elon Musk is like the corporate version of Donald Trump on Twitter. And one of the things that Donald Trump does on Twitter is really controls the news cycle and is able to change the narrative very, very quickly. There's a lot of narrative about Tesla not doing so well. And then this comes out, and now this is all we're talking about. Do you think there was anything intentional about that?
Well, he's a prolific use of...
Tim, and then we'll get Teresa's thoughts.
Yeah, he's a prolific user of Twitter, unlike really any other CEO out there, and has been able to really tap into his supporters. He uses it to really kind of flame that fire, get people excited, but it also attracts the people who are out to get him. And there's just essentially a war on Twitter every day. Either Tesla's up or it's down.
Although, Teresa, we do know that Elon Musk has mastered the use of Twitter at key points. When that stock starts to drift, he's got a big-time battle with the shorts. He knows how to use Twitter. It's worked for him big time. And then, of course, there was a conference call with the $6 billion apology that sent the stock near all-time high. So he is a master public relations guy when it comes to Twitter, although it could be a double-edged sword, right?
I definitely think so. He's also said that the company may have gone bankrupt as some sort of a joke. And so it's unknown exactly what he uses Twitter for and whether or not he thinks that his statements have to be truthful on there or whether or not it's used for more of jokes. But all of this analysis is what the SEC is going to do. They're going to be looking at this to see whether or not there was truth in the statements. They're also going to be looking at whether or not there were trades beforehand. Did he or anybody else trade before the tweet? And so this is going to be a very in-depth scrutiny as to Tesla, as well as what kind of capital expenditures or capital deals they had going, they had planned.
Right.
Was there any reason that they needed the stock price to bump up at this point in time? And purposefully manipulating the markets is a violation of the securities laws.
Again, though, that's being investigated. How long does the investigation take like this? It shouldn't take that long.
There is a lot of information that they're going to have to go through, and then looking at whether or not trades occurred before the Twitter, and so whether or not somebody traded on that beforehand, they're going to be looking at all those different tickets. So this can take a considerable amount of time to properly investigate, and I'm sure that the SEC is going to fully investigate it before issuing any kind of a statement on it or the results of its investigation, although it is noteworthy that it's been reported that the SEC already had some sort of an inquiry or investigation going into the company, which means that it was much easier for it to broaden the investigation into these new allegations, which makes it able to act more swiftly.
In the meantime, Tim, I think $12 billion worth of the stock is short. The shorts have gotten absolutely annihilated over the years in their war with this stock. And we've seen that over and over again. In fact, if there's an emerging theme, I think, during this earnings season, it's the shorts getting crushed. But they always seem to be able to come back. They always seem to have friends in high places. So what does that mean, with respect to this stock and even other publicly traded companies that may not be as bombastic as an Elon Musk, but still feel that maybe being public and being at the mercy of shorts and Wall Street analysts is not worth it anymore?
Well, that's one of the reasons why Elon Musk wants to take Tesla private. He says he's just tired of this group of investors who are really out to get him, he feels, that are really rooting for his failure. And he wants to make sure that those people invested in the company have some desire for him to be successful, desire for Tesla to be successful in the long run. And that's essentially the argument he's kind of making through Twitter in this memo that he sent out to his employees last week.
Well, certainly intriguing. It is the market story, perhaps one of the market stories of the year. Teresa, Goody, and Tim Higgins, thank you both very much. Really appreciate your expertise this morning.